My name is Habiba Mohamed. I work with Fistula Foundation as the Regional Director of Programs Africa.
My name is Bwalya Magawa Chomba. I come from Zambia. I'm the program director for Fistula Foundation.
For joining Fistula Foundation, I worked in this field for over a decade, and I've met so many different stories, and each story is unique on its own. But one story that sticks to my mind is always the first story that was an aha moment for me. It is a story that changed my trajectory to life that led me to start working with women with fistula because this is the first client I ever met. Eh, Can you imagine yourself getting expectant at 14 years and being sent away from your family just because you got pregnant out of wedlock? This was actually my first case. I had gone out to the field to do artificial insemination to one of my clients when I met a young disabled boy who was actually tied behind the house. Um, I was curious to know what was happening. So after I finished attending to the animal, I went behind the house just to understand what is happening with this because I was seeing only a face. So when I met this young boy, it was a really devastating moment for me. I set out to start finding out what happened. What is the story behind this boy who was tied behind the house? And on following up, I discovered that this boy was actually born out of wedlock with a 14-year-old girl. So this girl was sent out of her family home, and she went to start working as a sex worker in the nearest county. When I shared the story with my father, he was like, I come from a very conservative family, and I was really protected when growing up. So getting into the to the community, and my first work, just to recap that, my father took me to school to train as a veterinary doctor. So this fistula work is a shift in my career in a different direction. So that's why I had gone to that farmer to do artificial insemination, just to contextualize that in the first place. So I shared, and he told me like, okay, my father used to call me mom. So he told me, mom, you have to get used to this. This is the reality we live in. But how can somebody get used to such a situation? It was heartbreaking for me. So I went out to start finding this woman, this young girl, what happened to her. And I discovered the girl was working as a sex worker in the nearest town. So I got to know her. We engaged for a number of times, and I got more curious to try and find out like what happens in this space, what is their story. And I met so many devastating stories. And that is the time when engaging with this girl, I discovered that she actually got fistula during that pregnancy that gave her the disabled child. The child was disabled because, the prolonged obstruction of labor, which actually causes the lack of oxygen, among the other things. So the child was not born when, though she didn't lose the baby, but the child was already mentally affected because of the lack of oxygen. And the mother had fistula, and now the mother was sent away from her family home. She went to work as a sex worker. So the story was disturbing for several years. I tried to engage and find out what is this condition because the girl was leaking urine all the time. And because she could not accept herself because of the smell and everything, she thought she could only get a sense of acceptance and belonging by working as a worker because she needed the income, but she also needed the love for anybody. So anybody who could be able to accept sleeping with her, in her young age, she felt that was the kind of love. So it took me around from meeting that girl, it took me for over 3 years before one time my partner had gone out to a conference in Sierra Leone, and then he came back with an answer. He told me like, the story you've been talking to me about, I think now I know what it is. That is a condition that is called fistula. Eh? And we are having our partner organization that we may be supported by the UNFPA to handle such a case. So I started linking up, and eventually we got connected. This girl was treated under the UNFPA program then. We trained her as an ambassador. She managed to go back to school because it's one of my really heartwarming story because despite everything that happened, we managed to take the girl. I and my partner took the girl back to school. She finished her secondary examination. She finished her certificate and her diploma course. And she now actually is a social worker helping more women at the community level.
I'll talk about this woman. She developed fistula in 1964 on the day of our independence, on the 24th of October. That was like a time to celebrate as the country was becoming independent. But for her, it was a different story. And you can imagine she was in a city. So, yeah, she had this problem. Then she was taken to the hospital. After 2 days, the surgeon who was supposed to do a cesarean on her, the operation, was not around. They had to call for that doctor who took some time. And then she ended up losing the baby and also having a fistula. Then she was sent back from town about 800 kilometers back to her home village. So from 1964, she stayed in this village. She never heard about fistula until after 55 years. That's when she heard, when we were doing our campaigns during radio, a radio program. I spoke on radio. Then she made a phone call. So already, if you look at 55 years, somebody has stayed with this fistula for 55 years, you are able to tell that then there's a problem. So the number one barrier is that lack of information. Not so much. We never heard about fistula. Like, for example, before I started working for Fistula Foundation, I had never seen an IEC material anywhere talking about fistula in our country. The radio programs, if I had heard maybe once or twice, but now we already see a lot. We are already talking a lot on radio. So lack of information, people are not aware. In the first place, a woman would develop fistula. She's not even aware what this problem is. She doesn't even understand it. And she doesn't even know where to get help from. Then the other thing is the distances, the long distances to where they can access treatment from. Yeah, so this is a barrier. Women still have to travel long distances to go to the hospitals where they can access treatment. Then also the cultural norms. It's not in every household that a woman can be allowed to go to the hospital. Sometimes they have to seek consent from the husband or from the family members. So you find that this is already a problem. She has this problem, she has the information, she knows where she can get the help from. But again, the husband or the family is not so sure. They are like saying, no, maybe these are Satanists. They'll go and draw your blood or they'll go and kill you. We don't know what will happen to you. So already that is a barrier. So these are some of the barriers I can talk about. The transport challenge. Yeah, we have the challenge of knowledge. People are not aware. We also have inadequate surgeons who are able to treat women. Yeah. So the surgeons who are able to treat women, like who can stand on their own right now, they are less than 5. The others are trainee, they have to do supervised surgery. So already, if you look at the population of the country, it really affects the way we are treating these women, but we are managing.
Actually, when you talk about fistula, we are talking about failure of the health system structures. So that is the core part of the fistula. So this failure results into a number of factors, right from the community level, from the facility level, and to the at institutional levels. Fistula Foundation just launched its 5-year strategic plan, and in this 5-year strategic plan, we are looking at supporting more women, over 80,000 women in the next coming year. We are also looking at start doing 5 new treatment networks, one each year for the 5 years. So this is actually a big goal for us, and this is going to ensure that we can be able to reach more women across the world. And we cannot be able to do this alone. We need everybody to join us, and we believe that everybody can be able to do something in their context. When you're out there and you can be able to pass the information to a woman with fistula, if you know anybody who's leaking urine or stool or both, please, you can be able to empower them and let them know this is not witchcraft, it is a medical condition that can be prevented, that can be treated. So pass the information out. You can support us financially to ensure that we can support each surgery and we can be able to pass the information to everybody.
Let's hear fistula being talked about in international spaces, because believe me, you, amongst the delegates you are seeing, there could be 1 or 2 women with fistula who are hiding, but we don't have any information about fistula. So a call to action is, let's talk about fistula in all the spaces so that we have more women having this information and knowing where to get the help from.